Civil Aviation Authority establishment already well underway. It will continue to develop during the course of the summer with an expected declaration of initial operating capability by October of this year. That will also, the plan is for that to coincide with the implementation of the NATO mentoring plan at the same time in October of this year, with an estimated full operational capability projected for October of 2014. As we look at the timeline for the award of the civil aviation contract, the Afghan government has that contract posted. Obviously, you're well aware of that. That's why you're here. During the course of the summer, the requirements of the Afghan procurement process and contracting law will be executed in phases. And we have a detailed timeline and projection for that process with an estimated award in late October of this year and contractor mobilization beginning in November of this year. Again, mobilization will be undertaken in phases, beginning with the high sector airspace and moving through the airspace sectors and onto airfields. The airfields, you shouldn't take the bottom right airfield depiction as a literal interpretation of proposed timing for transition of airfields, but more of a likely logical sequence in which the airfields will be transitioned, beginning with Kabul Area Control Center, located at Kabul International Airport. So that would be the initial phase of transition of Kaya and moving on to airfield operations in the 5 categories being transitioned. Another likely transition, logical transition, would be to move through the national entities at Mazar-e Sharif and Herat. And finally, due to the ongoing requirement at Kandahar Airfield, which is the primary cargo hub for coalition forces, the retrograde of forces out of Afghanistan will require very robust and ongoing operations at Kandahar through the end of 2014. So that really concludes my presentation at this point. Doug, are we going to do a Q&A session at this point, or is it time to move on?
So let me tell you what I've heard from you, and then tell me whether I am understanding this correct. Sure. I mean, what I'm hearing here is it sounds like the equipment is in place. This is today being performed under CENTAF, being contracted out to some contractors who are doing it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a new contract that's going to be under the Afghan government control. This contractor is going to come in, and his primary mission is now that equipment is going to be handed over to the Afghan government. This new contractor under Afghan government control is now going to, together with the Afghan government, recruit Afghanis, train the Afghanis to perform this in the future, and somewhat crawl, walk, run with them to eventually, over time, hand it over to the Afghanis and sustain it into the future.
That is correct, with one correction.
Okay.
Not only is the training element critical, but also the actual operation and the maintenance of the system.
And the maintenance and performance of the system simultaneously.
Right. Absolutely. And so the termination of the U.S. absent contract presence would be anticipated no later than December of 2014.
So I gave a correct readback.
Yes, that is accurate.
Equipment, I mean, the equipment is there to sustain commercial operations with approach control and terminal operations, firefighting, all that stuff.
I will say with specificity that the equipment to operate the airspace control system is in place.
Okay.
The airfield or airport equipment, in large part, has yet to be determined, again, based primarily on NATO planning factors and some U.S. planning factors as well. So we can't talk to that effectively.
Will airport security be part of this, perimeter security and or passenger, security be part of this or not? Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, that'll be covered under Major Malloy, so I don't want to steal his thunder.
No problem.
Yes, it does fall within the MOCA and future civil aviation authority portfolio overall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you very much. I'll take one question.
Do you think you will be able to give us more details on the kind of ATM management equipment that is in place right now, or airspace control?
You know, that's a very good question, and we'll take that for action. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to let you know what the specific technical details of the system being in place right now. So, sure. I can't answer that in detail right now, but we will post that response. And Doug's taking that down for posting on the website. Anything else? It seems right when I say thank you. So I'll say thank you again. Okay. I think that's it. I'll turn it back over to Doug. And I thank you for your interest and attention. Do you have one more?
Yeah, I do have one other question. One other question.
Sure.
Has there been any discussions between the Afghan government and the U.S. government of doing this FMS?
No, I don't think that's a likely solution.
Not even open to discussions.
That would be my understanding of current U.S. asset policy.
Okay, just curious.
Sure. All right.
Welcome back. Hopefully you won't be as shy about asking questions this afternoon in the Q&A. We do want you to leave here with a very good understanding of what these contracts are, what these opportunities are, what these possibilities are. It is a very long-term contract, and it's a good thing. You know, I wanted to take the opportunity, when I talked about the Afghan government's commitment to this, and the minister's commitment, and the director's commitment to this, I introduced the Director General, but beyond that, he also has brought his staff, some of his critical staff with him. And if I could get them to stand up, please, Captain Adele and some of the other staff. Okay. So, Mr. Yahya Mir, and I believe there's two of the contract specialists that are also here. Probably here we go. So, yeah. So we welcome them, and we thank you for taking that commitment to bring your staff here that people can ask direct questions to and stuff. So without much more, I want to go ahead and bring up another critical component of our team. And what you're looking at here, by the way, I don't take credit for it. The director doesn't take credit. This is a team effort, and I am just so proud to be part of that team, sir, and to be part of the team with the military and our folks from NATO that are here. So with nothing further, Major Malloy, please.
So I guess if Colonel Weiss can make a few mistakes as a major, I can make a whole bunch of mistakes. Just a little about myself. I'm the ISAF liaison to MOTCA, airfield operations background, which takes into account know a little about air traffic, a little about airfield management. Not a lot about both because I'm an officer, but I do have both perspectives there. And I work closely with MOTCA, especially Captain Adele, on a very close basis. And also, this is my third time in Afghanistan. I was at Shindand and Kandahar before. And it's kind of a family thing because my wife has also spent time in Afghanistan. And this is a true story. The other day back home, we're in Panama City, Florida. My wife's on the beach with our 4-year-old and our 6-month-old. And my son's digging a hole in the sand like kids do. And, you know, what do we always say? Are you digging a hole to China? So she asks, are you digging a hole to China? He says, no, I'm digging a hole to Afghanistan. So that always gets the moms. I don't see a lot of moms, but that always gets the moms right here. And it is a true story. Another true story. When I first got here, when I first got to Kabul on the staff, I went to, like anything else in the military, you know, you get there, when you get there, it doesn't really matter. If there's a big meeting coming up, you're the rep. So I go to this Aviation Donor Coordinating Board working group. And it's a 2-hour meeting. I'm getting what we call the fire hose effect, all this information coming. And I'm just trying to take it all in. I'm like, what is going on? Who's training whom? Where are we going? Because this meeting is supposed to take the Aviation Action Plan, which is the transition plan that we're working off of. It's supposed to take us from A to B. And all I'm seeing is X, Y, Z. I'm seeing all these letters. So I don't know what's going on. Now, fast forward to the meeting we had this past Monday, I believe, this past week. Same meeting, same people. And don't get me wrong, it was a 2.5-hour meeting, so it's a long meeting. But you could just see the progress being made. You could see the deliberately going over each action item. And it had turned from the international community going to MOTCA going, where are you here, where are you here? To MOTCA going, hey, where are you here? You said you were going to do this at this time. Where are you at this? So it's great to see. Now we're like, oh, well, we got to get our stuff together because MOTCA's asking us for this information. So that was it was really good to see that, and I think we're heading in a great direction. So today I'm going to go over a little bit about the existing contracts, and then that middle stuff is all about my participation on the working group that built, we say we built the contract, but really it's the terms of references that leads to the contract. And then, what are the next steps? So the purpose of going over these existing contracts is twofold. It's kind of showing you what you don't have to worry about as far as the prime contract, and also to show that this is not like we say, the first rodeo here. MOTCA knows how to do aviation contracts. Starting with the first one, I believe you mentioned security, sir. There's one in place now, and they're actually working on another aviation security contract for the passenger security at the 4 major airports. And MOTCA understands this. You're not going to have international flights without a credible security presence there. It just has to happen. And the newer contract they're working on now about the airport security contains a lot of the principles that Mr. Cintron mentioned about building an Afghan-centric system and training, rather than just being the service provider, for infinity. So there's a plan there as well. Airport terminal maintenance, there's one in place at Kabul. That's just the maintaining of that terminal area, everything that needs to go into that. So that's not something that this contract is addressing. And there's also work being done for the other 3 major international airports to have that terminal maintenance in play. And then finally, the revenue collection, part of that aviation action plan, it's actually several of the deliverables, but it was to get an automated revenue system in place, a transparent automated revenue system. And the FAA, U.S. Embassy working very closely with MOTCA, probably about the 95% level now. The overflights is with IATA, so that's fully automated. Security fees getting very close there, also with IATA. And then the landing fees are coming close to being automated with Vector Corporation. And you look at my fancy graphic here. I'm not trying to tell you we're just gush with money, not to a whole room full of contractors. But the point here is this is one of only 3 ministries that brings money in. And long term, we believe that this is a viable, self-sustaining system. There's some capital costs to be sure, but I say DROA, that's my military speak. The government of Afghanistan is committed to funding this contract, and they're committed to seeing it through. So I'm going to go over now our transition contract objectives and talk a little bit about the team that was put together this past February. We had 30 days to come up with all of the documents necessary, the request for proposal, the terms of reference, the expression of interest that you've all seen. It was a team effort, as everyone said, with some participation. MOTCA-led, you have to have Ministry of Finance involved, of course, and then all of these other entities. We had some help from Central Command as well with their contracting experts. Because what we didn't want to do is do the America solution where, hey, we're going to write this contract for you, here you go, and then get back, well, this doesn't work for this, in our system we can't do this. Because we do more harm than good. So that's why we brought MOTCA and the Ministry of Finance in from the very beginning, or else it wouldn't have gotten anywhere. So we've already talked a little bit about that Afghan-centric system, because that was our first objective given to this group, was to make sure that wording is in the contract. So that, like Mr. Cintron said, once the system's in place and you built it, and then you work on the training and all this other stuff, that has to be left behind. That is what Afghanistan is going to use to run their system, is whatever this prime contractor builds. And also the building human capacity, the recruit, train, and certified portion there, it's more of a life cycle. Right now we do a lot of training in Afghanistan. I'll be frank, it's not well coordinated between everybody because you've got some people doing training on this portion, some training on this portion. This contract takes more of a national view and will coalesce all of these disparate functions into the future aviation employees. Because I'll go over these aviation employees because I believe, as Mr. Cintron said, you're going to have a lot of people looking to work for you. This maintain practices and procedures in accordance with ICAO standards, that's what's being done now. That's keeping the system running. That's the traditional contract with those other two layers on top. And then finally, we realize this is a complex contract. I mean, just the back and forth I've had with the few people here in the questions, like, man, this is hard. Absolutely. That's why there needs to be some kind of independent third-party contract to not oversee. I almost said it myself, but people keep calling it the oversight contract. It's just a Q&A, because what that oversight will do is just provide a mechanism to see how the contractor, the prime contractor, is meeting the key performance indicators. So this is the fancy waterfall chart we've built. And when you see contracts, that is that prime contract and also the quality assurance contract as well. And here we are today at the industry day. You've got until May 8th for the expressions of interest. Then the short listing, and then you see here the request for proposals. That's when you can get a lot of clarification from those shortlisted companies. And that's in the short term. And this is why we had to have the Ministry of Finance involved from the very beginning. There's no way we would have known about this stuff. We would have known about ARDS and how long this was going to take. And, oh, yeah, well, they'll sign here, but actually, under our law, we have to do this. So that's why we were able to build this out and have that October date as a target. Otherwise, we would have said, oh, yeah, we could have this signed this summer. And this is why we had to start early, because as you can see, this is pretty lengthy. And if we would have waited until every decision was made, we would still be waiting, and it would affect the transition. When you see down here those key engagements, that's with the high-level leadership in MODCA and ISAF. These are just some opportunities that they're getting together and to keep the momentum going. Because at any one of these points, if it starts to stall, it starts pushing right. It starts pushing right. And then we're talking 2015, 2016. So we've targeted some key points there for the key leaders in place to say, where are we with this? Let's keep this project moving. So we had our objectives, and then here are what we considered some more of our deliverables. Our goals, to build that Afghan system. When you see, the ones that see the terms of reference, they'll see system management. That's building that Afghan-centric system. In the personnel development, that's the building of the human capacity, the full life cycle to recruit, train, and certify the Afghan personnel. And that system performance is keeping the system moving. We envision a phased approach. I'll get to that a little bit later in my fancy triangle slide. Because, no, we don't want to expect, we're going to start training everybody all at once. And then we defined the functional areas. Colonel Ice went over a little bit. I've got some pictures and everything just to clarify a little bit more on what those functional areas are. So there's my fancy triangle slide. So we envision it as to develop, implement, and then transfer, because we like to, we're military, we like clear, hold, build kind of things. So starting with the development, it says workers down there at the bottom of the triangle, but that's also building that Afghan-centric system. You have to have that as the foundation to build those entry-level workers too. That's where the vast majority, the firefighters, the air traffic controllers, that's where a lot of the manpower is going to come into play. The next step would be implementing and finalizing the system and working to build those supervisors. The people that have shown the most capacity can move up to be supervisor level. So you're taking away a lot of those people that were doing the worker level from the contract side. Now it's Afghans. Now we're working on the supervisors. Less people. And then finally, we envision that last phase, the top there, the managers, to be the stepping back and then seeing how is this being worked. How are you doing? We're only talking about maybe the heads of each functional area. So a small presence, but a very important responsibilities there. So I promised y'all pictures, and here we go. Here's airspace. I wanted to put they made fun of me because I put the outside of the KACC here, but hey, that's what it looks like. It's expeditionary. And then this is in the infield of Kabul International Airport, and then Kabul Approach Control is right there along with the ASR-8. So this is kind of the expectation of what those facilities look like. Colonel Lice mentioned that in the high airspace, this is declassified now, so we can show pictures of that. We couldn't show pictures of the low airspace side of the KACC. But there's somebody working high approach, and then there's like the micro EARTS view of the display they're looking at. CNS, people are always interested in CNS. That's the picture of the VSAT. These are both from Mazar-i-Sharif. And the VSATs, we're working with the Constellation now. We've decommissioned 2 of the VSATs, and we're doing an operational check to see how many more VSATs we need to keep up and running, because it's a delicate balance, because it costs money to run these. And the Constellation that's there now is built for our use. It wasn't built to run a civil aviation system. So we're doing operational checks now to see, okay, where are the holes? Do we really want to decommission any more, or do we want to keep what we have? And the ones that are decommissioned will be used for training, and they're being pulled to Kabul International Airport. And then Colonel Lice mentioned the ASR-8s are at Mazar-i-Sharif, Ghazni, and Kabul. And Mazar-i-Sharif was actually flight checked 2 days ago. So that one is up and running and flight checked. And then finally, for the airspace, these are all, that first slide did say airspace, but these first 3 functional areas all fall under the AFCENT airspace contract. And in the case of the AIS, some of these procedures are being formed by Pacific Air Forces at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, and some are being performed in Europe. But this would be AFCENT transferred to the contractor. The Aeronautical Information Publication, Colonel Lice mentioned we've got 4 people in training there. That was another one. Those trainees have been ready to train. They're waiting on us to train them. So that's part of that human capacity waiting to be trained and waiting for us instead of waiting, well, where are your trainees? So, but that part is not going to be part of the contract. That